Pursuant to Executive Order number 2025 as extended by Executive Order 2034, and possibly one more extension that I may not have on my list yet, by order of the governor, this meeting is being conducted electronically. If I could ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Glassbach?
Here.
Mrs. Hildebrand?
Here.
Mrs. Hoskins? Here. Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Mather?
Here.
Mrs. Schott?
I'm here.
Joe Bento?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you could please call the calendar.
We have no calendar on the agenda tonight.
Okay. And we have no presentations or recognitions. Unless there are any recognitions, Dr. Ajay?
You know, I do want to make one recognition. It just became known to me today. We have a student at North Kingstown High School. He's 14 years old. His name is Ryan Lukowitz, and Ryan is blind. And Ryan just participated in a podcast with a reporter named Bill Bartholomew. And it was brought to my attention just today, and it was so well done. And Ryan is aspiring to be a weather forecaster and already has a weather blog that he puts together. So if there's a link to it on Twitter, on the North Kingstown School Department Twitter feed, and it's just, Ryan is such an articulate and impressive young man to be doing this, particularly, being blind and still going down this road. And it's so impressive to hear him speak about it. I'm sure he's going to be a huge success. And it was just really, nice for me to hear this because, Bill was a student at Carroll High School when I was there and remembered me and I remembered him. And so it was kind of nice to hear what they had to say in regards to, having a connection to me as well. So that was really nice, and that's why it was brought to my attention. But it's worth everyone in the North Kingstown community finding that and going on that link. It's about a 20-minute or so conversation, but it's worth every minute. He's an impressive young man. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Sure.
So next item on the agenda are citizens' comments, and a little speech on citizens' comments in a Zoom meeting in the world we're in at the moment. There are a couple ways that you can let us know that you would like to make a comment. If you go under, if you're not familiar with the Zoom software, the Participants tab, you will be able to hit a button that says Raise Your Hand. When you do that, it will notify me that you would like the opportunity to speak. Any of you who may be participating using the telephone Zoom system, the way you do that is you use *6 to indicate that you would like to speak, and *9 to unmute yourself. And I already see a number of hands going up, so I see that that is working. And a couple things to note. We do request if you could please state your name and your address for the record prior to speaking. And we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, please, so that we can have everyone have the opportunity to speak who'd like to and give everyone a fair opportunity to do so. One other thing I want to note is in our last meeting, it was a little different than usual in that we did, answer specific questions. The reason for that is we held that meeting specifically for that purpose. It was a single item agenda meeting just to talk about the school reopening plan. Generally, the school committee does not respond directly to questions, though if there's something that you bring up that Dr. Ajay can address, he may be able to do that in his superintendent's report later on in the agenda. But you're welcome to speak as to any topic that you would like. I'm going to do this in the order that I see. I believe Zoom actually puts them in the order you raise your hand. And as I mentioned in our last meeting, I only know the name that you have on the title of your Zoom. So sometimes that's you, sometimes that's someone else in your family. But the first person has the title of Rebecca. So if you would like to speak, you can go ahead right now.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Campbell, and I have two incoming high school students for NK. One's going to be a 9th grader, and another's going to be a 12th grader. I appreciate the opportunity to share my feelings and concerns regarding the reopen plan for North Kingstown High School. I've had an opportunity to speak to both the superintendent, the principal, and several senior, junior parents, and we're really concerned about the lack of in-school time our high school students are provided this with the first phase-in plan. We have 9.5 hours one week and 11 hours every other week, not adequate enough to provide an education for our students that we pay taxes for. I'm also really concerned about the lack of training that's been provided thus far this summer. If we do have to go on an online plan, as many people have expressed to me and through letters, that the online plan that was used for the spring was really inadequate. We had students that would check in for 15 or 20 minutes and then check out. There was a lack of instruction, lack of supervision, and to actually think that our high school students' social and emotional development to be in their homes for 3 full days and then 2 half days unsupervised is a real concern for their needs and what is expected of them. So I just wanted to express that, and I would like to request a meeting with our school committee from a from the parent group and a student group, because there's a lot of people that are really concerned about this potential first plan. So I can that's pretty much all I have to share.
Thank you very much. Sorry, my screen just changed. Give me a moment. Okay, next person I have is Cara Martone, please.
Hi there, it's Cara Martone. I live at 73 Woodbridge Drive. I just want to say thank you in advance for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight regarding our back-to-school scenarios. I did send an email to the school committee yesterday detailing my primary concerns, so I will not reiterate everything I was saying, but I did want to just reinforce my concern I have surrounding the 4x4 current schedule. As it stands in our best case scenario and in our other scenarios, I really don't believe that asynchronous learning combined with a minimal amount of hours with the teacher is conducive to any student success for any class, in particular AP classes. The onus of mastering a full year's curriculum in one semester, I don't feel should be placed on the students' shoulders, and I just feel that with the amount of time they're getting in front of the teacher, it's really falling on the student. And I can't see that that's acceptable. So that is really my main concern with all of the scenarios that we have. On a positive note, I was definitely encouraged to see the transportation survey resent today. Parents should absolutely have to choose whether or not their student is going to need transportation provided by the town. I think this will hopefully provide the town a little more flexibility to help solve that transportation problem. This is just a huge issue for everyone, and it's really going to take an entire village to work together, come up with scenarios that work for the students' education and their safety, and that is, that's paramount. So again, thanks for your time, and I look forward to future collaborations, because I think that that's probably what it's going to come down to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Jason's iPhone 2. Hello? Would you still like an opportunity to speak? I can see that you've unmuted, but I haven't been able to hear you yet. All right, I'll give you another try one more time, and then if not, I'm going to go to the next person. But if you want to give it another shot towards the end, we will give you an opportunity if you're having technical trouble. All right, I see that you're muting and unmuting, but I still can't hear you. So not sure what I can do, but what I'll do is I will put your hand down for now. If you fiddle with your settings and are able to speak a little later, we'll give you another opportunity. Okay, next is Sue.
Hi. Everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Your name and address.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sue Enos. I live at 118 Misty Meadow Lane. I have two students going to the high school next year, or at the high school. I have a junior and a senior. So my primary concerns are the lack of face-to-face instruction, whether it would be virtual instruction or classroom instruction. I think we all have said and heard that spring was not something that we want to see happen again in terms of instruction. So we really need to figure out what we're going to do to help these kids have face-to-face time with their teachers. If kids could learn by themselves, they wouldn't even go to school. So I think that's huge. We have to start thinking outside the box. I will piggyback on what Kara said about putting a full year's curriculum into a half year of core classes is just really not an acceptable option. We're actually saying that it's as important for a kiddo to sit in front of a photography teacher as it is in front of a math teacher. So with the current plan. So I think we need to rethink that. Obviously kids need to be with, why can't we maybe perhaps look at electives being on the day that the kids are at home and can do some self-discovery learning. I think we haven't really tapped into some out-of-the-box thinking. And then I do just have one question. Were there parents and students involved in the plan that was submitted to RIDE? The article in the Independent said that there was, but I've heard conflicting messages about that. So I did look at Dr. Ogier's information on the NKSD website. It mentioned there was the Reopening NK Advisory Group. Who was on that?
There were 35 members on that committee.
Dr. Shea, I'll have you. Yeah, we'll have to address that.
Sorry.
And get back to people on that. Sorry.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I just would like to know who represented parents and students, because from the student perspective, I'm hearing that there were not students involved. So I just would like some information about that. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I know we all want the same things. We all want the kids to be successful and to learn, and I think that we just have to collaborate a little bit more to get to a better place.
Thank you. Next person is Nicole Samarco.
Hi, I'm Nicole Samarco. I live at 66 Green Lake Drive, and I'm going to be a senior this year at the high school. And a lot of us joined the town council meeting yesterday. And my first question is, I brought up something that was made apparent to me in that the town council has a couple of $1 million or somewhere around there, maybe less, in sort of a rainy day fund, and none of that is being allocated to some of the changes that are necessary to have the potential to bring students back full-time in terms of teacher aides and busing. And when I mentioned that, it seemed as though the town council had no apparent idea that that was something in anyone's interest, and I was just wondering as to why no one looked for an option to find money to be able to find a full-time or just a more efficient way to bring kids back to school as much as possible.
Okay, so as we mentioned, we can't really question and answer in this. We can hear your comments, and Dr. Jay can try to get back to you or address some of those items when he gives the report later.
Okay, and then I just also wanted to reiterate, as a student, that distance learning was very difficult over the spring, not curriculum-wise or workload-wise, because I think if you looked at all of the students' grades combined, everyone did pretty well numerically, but I feel as though, and I know my friends and peers that I've talked to feel the same way, that nothing was really absorbed, and we're all kind of scared to return to such a program if there's only been a couple days of training given to teachers for training in the fall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. The next person has an identifier of C. Trask.
Yes, my name is Christine Trask. I live at 94 Laurel Ridge Lane. I have submitted a more detailed message to the school committee, so I think you're aware of some of my concerns and issues. And I just wanted to underscore this in front of everyone. In line with what Kara had said and Sue had said, my primary concern is about instruction that the students are receiving, whether it's over virtual formats or face-to-face formats, but the number of hours of instruction where they can ask a question in the moment, have problems shown in the moment, get feedback on their performance in the moment is crucial to their learning. Again, if my child could learn just by watching Khan Academy, I wouldn't have any concerns and we would be done and they wouldn't be going to school. But to be able to do a whole year of math and English with half of their classes for half a day, for half a year, with half of their peers is a staggering thought. With the distance learning they received in the spring, most districts were in a similar position and they were going to be in a similar position to those peers. But now this is really uniquely different than what other schools are doing, both within our state and across the country. And it was really staggering to me to see a report just yesterday released that out of looking at schools across the nation, Massachusetts has moved up to number 1, Connecticut has moved up to number 2, we've fallen to 27th, which is the lowest in New England, and our SAT scores, our median SAT scores for our students are 47th in the nation. And how will they be able to enter college with those peers if they don't have the same level of instruction this year? And again, as a parent, I'm more than willing to try to participate, to help, and I wish there was more opportunity to figure out how we can help, because I think a lot of us want to be part of the solution. So I really would encourage the school committee to think about how to involve the parents and find out what we can offer or provide to help and assist with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Mary Breimer.
Hi everybody, Mary Breimer, 200 Minor Road. I'm a member of the town council. I want to thank all the parents who came before us last night and have been emailing. I simply just wanted to reiterate, an email went out about 5 p.m. from President Mancini to Mr. Blasbog about the town council and the school committee having a workshop. The purpose would just be to assess what needs are outstanding right now so that we can collaborate our resources to see where we might fill the gap to accomplish the goal of full-time in-person or at least an equitable education for all. There was a suggestion last night from a student that instead of rotating the class schedules by the alphabet, that it's rotated by the grade year, so 11th graders one day, 12th graders the other. That way they would be together with their peers and it would be more comfortable for them. And I think that we need to prepare ourselves that there might be a spike in COVID, which could increase restrictions from what we're currently planning with. And synchronous learning should be implemented just so that we're prepared. And for those students and families that prefer to have learning at home, I think that it's something worth us considering more than just brushing it off as an idea. I'm very alarmed at the number of parents and students who have told me that they showed up for their Google Meets and class time, virtual class time, and there was no teacher present. And I understand that it was very difficult. We did a great job at throwing together a plan, but we all went through our own shock of this is actually happening. We're in a pandemic and readjusting, but it's just not acceptable that a teacher doesn't show up to teach. It's teaching a horrible lesson to the students about accountability. And so I would like the school committee to please implement some type of tip line that is anonymous for the parents and students to report when this is happening so that you can address that administratively, look into it. Because as a parent, I would imagine that there would be some fear of retaliation towards the student on their grades for complaining. So I'm sure that we can implement something to monitor that and make sure that students are receiving the education that they should be. And then this is just an opportunity for us to embrace new ways and methods of doing things. For example, the Senior Center organized a volunteer army to deliver meals to our seniors in the community. pick up their prescriptions, take them to doctor's appointments. And if we allow the parents and volunteers in the community to help out with transportation and delivering lunches, getting that, I understand the lunchtime, cycling that through is part of what's making the scheduling difficult. I think that we can do a good job. And then, one other thing that came up, the Lowe's building was one of 3 buildings that the governor acquired for an emergency potential hospital, and it's not been utilized. So if we're out of space, why can't we repurpose that Lowe's building with dividers like the old-fashioned A&D building that we used to have on the old high school campus, and we would have larger classroom size so we could bring additional students there. That could be an option. And I'll leave you with this one thought. A parent said the other night to me, once upon a time, during this graduating class's, school life, they fought for full-time kindergarten, and now we're fighting for full-time 11th and 12th grade. And I want to do whatever I can from the town council perspective, from a volunteer perspective, to work with the school committee and see how we might be able to do this better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person who's signed up is Joe Vento.
Joe Vento, 40 Cassandra Lane. I want to start off by saying that it's obvious to me that the administration has made its best effort in trying to solve the issues that correlate with COVID-19. Unfortunately, I'm not the only one here tonight who is part of the Reopening Advisory Committee who feels a little left out of the process. As a result, myself and many other residents have noticed errors in our reopening plan. Errors that could have possibly been avoided with more teacher or student oversight. So I have some questions for Dr. Auger that I hope he can answer in his presentation. And these are mostly for the full in-person reopening plan. So my first question is, the reopening plan has the high school starting at 7:15 and ending at 11:50 a.m. That's 4 hours and 35 minutes. The FAQ document released a couple days ago states the high school will have 4 72-minute classes on a given day. That's a total of 4 hours and 48 minutes. In your presentation, Dr. Auger, can you explain this discrepancy in the number of hours we'll be at school? My second question is, the FAQ doc says that we will, quote, still take 8 classes for the year, 4 per semester. Meanwhile, I've been informed by Dr. Morse, the high school principal, that we can take up to 8 credits, not classes, for the school year. In your presentation, can you explain which is true? My third question is, in the plan you submitted to RIDE, it outlines what you'll be doing to provide learning offerings for students and teachers on trauma, social, emotional support, and restorative practices. The plan states that at the high school you will continue to work with the youth restorative practices of RI. Is this training given to students and teachers, or one or the other? Is there a structure, part of class time in which teachers can inform students about these restorative practices? Will there be structured lessons, or is it optional? And then my final question is, RIDE has instructed you to gather feedback from parents and students throughout this process. The district has sent a couple of surveys to parents. Have you sent surveys to students? Other than the 2 reopening committee meetings, which I had asked to be a part of, how else are you collecting student input? So again, I really hope you can answer those questions in your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on the list is Sue Alexander.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Hi, my name is Sue Alexander. I live at 211 Earl Drive, North Kingstown. I'm here to reiterate a lot of what we've heard from other parents. I have 2 focuses, and that is on their academic growth and their mental health. I'll start with the academic growth. When I look at the plan, and they're supposed to be in-person instruction for possibly 9 up to maybe 13 hours, depending on the plan, that frightens me, to be honest with you. Our experience with distance learning in the spring was not a good one. I will give credit to some teachers, they did a really good job. Those, I have to say, those that were doing a really good job all along stepped up and did a really good job. But there were also times where we had a teacher not show up to Google Meets. Kids are sitting there hanging on waiting. Some of the workload in some of the classes was just, write me a page about how you're feeling during quarantine for English. I mean, it was just unacceptable. So now we're gonna say, my son possibly could go to school on Monday. I'm gonna take a math class, for instance. We're gonna teach lesson 1 on Monday. But on Tuesday, we're gonna teach the other half of the kids lesson 1. So then when Wednesday comes and it just becomes a cycle, I'm assuming, is my kid teaching himself lesson 2 on Tuesday? Otherwise, there's no way to put a whole year's worth of math into one semester unless the kids are teaching themselves half of the lessons. So, I think to myself, obviously, if we have to go distance, synchronous learning would be the way to go. A lot of other districts used it, and parents were happy with it. And it's accountable. It makes the kids accountable. It makes the teachers accountable. To the other point, the mental health of these kids, I've sent forward, and I know it's been circulating around, a video that was made by a teen and how they felt about distance learning. And if you haven't watched it, it's a really good idea to watch it, okay? It's scary that these teens are feeling secluded, depressed, anxious. Our high school alone has dealt with suicide within the last couple of years. You don't see that happening at elementary and middle schools. These teens are the most vulnerable for depression, for mental illness. And to just isolate them and tell them, you're on your own for half of the days, to me is unacceptable. We have a community of volunteers, and they've done a great job with other things. For instance, passing that bond last year, putting that scoreboard up on the field. This is a community of people who are willing to help. And I think not only would our input have been helpful, but we're willing to help now. We want to come together to come to a solution that's fair for these high schoolers. This is just not good enough in my eyes. So I hope that the school committee will accept the invitation from the town council to have a joint workshop, possibly parent input, a meeting maybe just for the high school parents, to address these concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person is Kimberly Annoy.
Hey there, Greg. How are you?
Well, thank you. And yes, we can hear you.
So, can you hear me all right?
We can.
So, I, like all of the other parents that are on here, have emailed, each of you, Dr. Auger, the leadership team at the high school, the Rhode Island Department of Ed, and the governor herself, and, with really the same message all around, that the plan submitted by our high school simply is, falls short of, in fact, the governor's request, which is to present 3 separate plans, one for full distance, one for hybrid, and one for 100% full in-person operations. Those are the governor's words, not mine. And I would say that any honest person would call the plan presented by our high school the best plan, a hybrid plan. And it's just, quite honestly, it fails to meet the needs of kids that want to go to school, and it doesn't meet the needs of the families that still, are living in a place where they don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school. So I think that I would like to ask that the school committee and Dr. Auger and the leadership team at our high school consider surveying, and I know they have surveyed parents, but perhaps we could ask the question in a different way. Similar to the busing schedule, where parents and families can either opt into school or opt out of in-person learning. I think that we may find that we have sort of a 50-50 split. That's been my experience in the last week or two that I've been really honest speaking to people. I think that there are lots of people that have absolutely no interest in sending their kids back to school. I would say the 50 of us that are here tonight, and many more, but want our kids in school every day, all day. And so maybe we don't really even have a problem. Maybe we can have teachers that are assigned to distance learning classes and teachers that are assigned to in-person classes. Because, even on the in-person days, if you've got half the kids at home on their own and you don't really have a full class of students. I know myself as a teacher, when I have 10 kids in the class, it doesn't really lend itself to the same kind of debate and conversation and support, academically and socially. And I think that's something that should be considered, because I think we're looking at splitting classes and we can only have this many kids in the lunchroom and the buses. And it might not even be a problem because we really might have people that have absolutely no interest in going to school. And I would say to them, if they say, well, I'm happy to go every other day, well, then they really aren't afraid for their kids' health and safety, because if you're going to go into the building one day, well, why can't you go in the other day? That's just something we've been kind of tossing around in our parent group, and I hope that that's something that the school committee and the leadership team at the high school will consider. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person is iPhone Dempsey.
Hi, I'm Dempsey Campbell. I live on 31 Ferry Road, and I'm going to be a senior. I just want to speak on behalf of some of my peers that are also in the senior class. And I just think that everyone can agree that the distance learning situation in the spring was definitely very difficult for everyone. And I know under the circumstances it was the best that the teachers could have provided for us. But I just think going into the fall with that with distance learning being a potential circumstance, that it is concerning for me, because I know that I didn't get much out of my education, and I would love to be in school full time, and I know that a lot of other kids are on board with that plan as well, and so I would really appreciate it if the school committee could consider a full in-person learning opportunity being there. So that's 25 kids in a class, still following the safety guidelines and regulations, or if that's half the kids in the class and half the kids at home that want to do full online learning. I'm on board for either one of those plans, so I just wanted to put my word in. That's all.
Thank you. Next person, I'll give you another try. We have Jason's iPhone 2.
Yes, can you hear me?
Now we can. Hi, sorry about that before.
Sorry, I was born 1975, but I figured it out. Thanks. I wanted to start off by thanking you for giving me a chance.
If you could just say your full name and address for the record, sorry.
Sure. It's Jason Lafferty. I live at 26 Hunters Court.
Thanks.
And I just want to start off by thanking you for giving me the floor, and I agree with everything the residents and students have said prior to me. I have a rising senior, my wife and I have a rising senior and a sophomore, as well as 2 other students in 2 other schools, but that's where we're at the high school. And we concur that last spring's learning model, even though it was ad hoc because of things that are outside our country and state's control, was subpar, and our students, both the senior, future senior, and sophomores, academic performance suffered because of that. The other point we wanted to bring up is that we also support fully the Trask family letter as a pathway or starting point to a more comprehensive full-time plan for the students, and one that our children deserve more than the part-time plan that currently exists. As it will set them up for success in higher ed, coming from myself, who taught at all different levels at Providence College, I just think that nothing substitutes full-time learning and in-person learning. Our children, as well as most of the students, or all the students in NK High School, deserve a better, more comprehensive plan. One that takes into account, the opinions and the local knowledge base of our community, and the great spirit of community that we have, that makes our community amazing, and that frankly attracted us to moving to this town that we gladly contribute to as taxpayers. So nothing substitutes for in-person learning. I have nothing further to comment. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Bill Alexander.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bill Alexander. I live at 211 Earl Drive. I've sent a few emails to the council, so I know that you have my email address. I'm not going to go over all of those again. I just want to agree with many of the folks here. I think that there is a need to involve the parents and the community more. I think you've heard some brilliant ideas already, and I know you guys did your best to put the plan together. But there's, obviously a lot of people have a lot of issues with the reopening plan as it is concerning NKHS. And so specifically having a meeting where we can discuss ideas, comments and questions could be answered instead of just, possibly brushed under the rug, I think would be very productive. And it doesn't need to be the whole community. It could just be NKHS, people with interest in NKHS. I think, what Kimberly Lanaway brought up about asking people whether they are intended or interested in attending school every day, all day, or whether they are interested in a virtual learning program should have been question number one, right? I mean, that's how you learn who is going to be your population, how many people are interested in actually being present every day at NKHS. It's a large school, and I understand there are constraints with space, but that should have been question number one. There are people who are fearful to go outside or to go to school every day. So right away, you could determine approximately how many people are going to be attending school instead of just assuming it's 1,600 people or 1,400 people that you have to deal with. The other thing is I heard that the reason why, even on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the current plan that it can't be a full day and it has to end before lunch is because the union can't be ordered, the teachers can't be ordered to sit and monitor, coverage for lunch. And so I was wondering whether or not any consideration was given to offer teachers, a stipend. I don't know how much it would be, $50 a week, $100 a week, I have no idea. But a stipend to actually, provide lunch coverage so that the students could actually be there for an extra 2 hours instead of only, the current plan, which calls for 4.5 hours. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for the time. You have my email address.
Thank you. Next person is Emma Murdock.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name is Emma Murdock. I live on 2727 Boston Neck Road. I'm going to be a senior this year, and first I really appreciate the opportunity to just speak in front of you guys. My biggest concern is just knowing that I'm going to be graduating from North Kingstown and I'm going to be moving on to college. Something that really makes me anxious is not really knowing. I don't really feel like I have closure that there's going to be a unison plan for the distance learning part. I feel comfortable knowing that teachers are able to teach in person, but the spring distance learning was just really something that scared me a lot, and it was really, really frustrating, I know, for me and all of my peers. And I get that there wasn't much time put into it, and I know that there's a four professional development days, but I think that there needs to be some sort of unison plan that I can have closure and know that I'm being instructed well. And I think what Mary suggested with the anonymous tip line was really good. And I also wanted to ask if maybe the superintendent could address in his presentation if the plan right now was set, or if there was any leeway, such as the grades being separated instead of the letters, and if there was any sort of leeway with the plan at all, or if it was already set in stone. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Mike Simarco. I don't see an audio icon next to you. I just see a muted video or blanked video. So it looks like you might not have your audio set up. So I'll give you another minute, and then what I'd suggest is I'll call on the next person, and you might want to restart. Just make sure that you've started the audio on your Zoom so that we can hear you. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the next person, but that doesn't mean you don't have the opportunity to speak. If you could try to maybe sign in again, make sure that you turn the audio on and connect usually it's a button that says use my computer audio, and that would give us the opportunity to hear you, because right now we can't hear you at all. Okay, thanks. We'll give you another shot when I get further on. Okay, next person is Kate Scott.
Hi, Kate Scott, 10 Jasmine Circle in Saunderstown. I have 2 children at Hamilton, an incoming 4th grader and an incoming 1st grader. I am worried and concerned about the safety of our teachers in the school as well as our children. I don't know how, with all the volunteering that I do in the school and all the donations we do, I'm very concerned about the supplies that they're going to have, the teachers, cleaning supplies, their PPE, how are they going to keep everything clean, and just their exposure level. Just having that many people in the school at one time leads itself to so many issues with people getting sick. Every day the numbers go up about people who are infected. And I get that we're all concerned about the high school, and I'm not there yet. My kids are still in elementary school, so the distance learning was not great for us, but I don't anticipate it impacting their college by any means, at least I hope not. I'm more concerned with, they go into a school, my kids are asymptomatic, their teacher gets sick, and now we have to deal with loss of teachers, loss of staff, and I just feel like not enough information and enough anything is being done or talked about at the teacher level. We're focusing on the kids, which is great, but the kids aren't the only ones involved in the school. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Elizabeth Kafalian.
Hi. I'm actually Kelsey Calfane. My address is 121 Fieldstone Lane. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I am a fellow student. I'm going to be an upcoming senior, and I just feel like I'm really concerned about like this upcoming school year and the plan, because although obviously physical health is really important and that is one of the top priorities, but I also feel like mental health is just as important. And I feel as though that splitting up the grades does not help. I mean, let alone that we probably aren't going to get homecoming and all the social like events that we look forward to. I feel like splitting up the grade isn't helping that. And I feel like splitting up the grades does not help with mental health. And I know a lot of kids look forward to just going to school to see their friends, and sometimes they don't get to see it outside of school. And I just feel like that's really important, and maybe there could be a different way to split up the entire school population but like keeping the grades together. And I also want to touch on the distance learning. And I know that my personal experience, that some of my teachers did put in an effort, but the majority of them, I didn't really put in that much effort, because I didn't really absorb anything or learn anything. Although my grades might have been well, I just don't think that sorry, I just feel like if it continues to be like it was in the spring, I feel like sorry, I won't learn as much either. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we did have one person who was having trouble with their audio. That's the last person who has their hand raised. So if I don't know if that person wants to give it another try, I'll certainly give you an opportunity to jump back in if you can.
Blasberg, I know Sue Warburton also submitted a letter.
Yeah, I'll do that next. So, all right, I don't see anyone else with their hands raised. So as Dr. Ojade mentioned, normally we don't read out citizens' comments that are emailed to us, but in this COVID world, we want to give anyone an opportunity to have their words heard. So we're flexible there. So I'm going to read a email submitted citizens comment. And it says, my name is Sue Warburton. I live at 1595 South Road in East Greenwich. I am the president of the NEANK, the Teachers Union in North Kingstown. I want to thank Dr. Ojade and his administration for continuing to keep communications open with the union leadership as the reopening of schools unfolds. Information that we are receiving changes daily, and there is a lot to discuss prior to the opening of schools. We are aware of the angst and the uncertainty that this brings the community. We feel that way as well. We would like the community to know that we are working nonstop together with the administration to ensure a safe and healthy environment for our students and those who work with them in the schools. Thank you for your time. Now, having said that, I see someone who's already spoken. You have your hand up, but you get one chance.
Just one more minute.
Yeah, no.
One more minute. I just, no.
You get one time, sorry. So, I mean, you're welcome to submit a comment, email to any of us or in any other way. And then I don't see any others. So, I'm going to move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. O'Shea?
Thank you, Mr. Blaswell. So, everyone, I really do appreciate the input that's been coming in. You know, people asked about, you know, our advisory committee, and I'll start there. There's a 35-member advisory committee. I'm not sure how many of those folks are parents in the district, but there are plenty of them in that group. You know, we were faced with a very difficult, you know, challenge to plan for this with a relatively short period of time. When you think of the scope of what we need to accomplish, I would think that having about a year of time to prepare in advance is really time frame I would think that we needed. So we needed to do a lot in a hurry. There has been a number of parents who have weighed in, whether it's through email, through the surveys that we sent, through this advisory committee. You know, so I'm satisfied with that, but I also understand the need for more communication, and we will do that. I don't have the details on how that's going to happen. I agree with the sentiments that I would like for the high school to have more in-person time. I'm just not sure yet on how I can make that happen. So we're gonna make some moves to try to accomplish these things. I also agree that synchronous learning is much better than asynchronous learning. I get that. Our teachers get that, and that's what we would like to accomplish. So, you know, there are, you know, all day, every day, I am working with my senior staff in the district. I'm working with our principals. I'm working with our unions. I'm taking calls from parents and responding to emails as best I can. And, you know, we hear you. And we're going to try to, you know, make this work in a way that, you know, the community wants it to. But I can tell you that, you know, a lot of people have made some comparisons tonight. Someone talked about how Rhode Island is 27th while other local states are a lot higher, and that is true. I don't know what specific study you're looking at for that, but I can tell you without a doubt that North Kingstown would compare favorably in any one of those states with any other district. We are one of the highest performing districts in Rhode Island, and we regularly receive recognition from the College Board, for instance, for, you know, AP involvement and the level of academic excellence in our school. And our school just won an award given by Mr. Cobain, who I'm going to introduce in a few minutes tonight, for our superior athletic program. So we have a great school, and you're absolutely right that part of its greatness is a really, you know, supportive parent community. And I appreciate that. I know the school committee does too. And we want these things as well. The logistics of this, I want you to know, I have the right team working on this. Someone like Barbara Morse, with all of her years at the high school as the assistant principal for teaching and learning, and as a department head and as Rhode Island Teacher of the Year, she has always been deeply involved in the scheduling of that high school. There's nobody that knows how to make the schedule work. And, you know, what's important in making the schedule work than her. And her team of department heads have been incredible in helping us find ways of getting things done. There are some other ways to do it. And just about every idea that's been thrown out tonight has been, you know, tossed about in our planning team. And for sake of, you know, efficiency and for sake of getting the right expertise in the room to help us, I think we have done a really good approach to our planning. On my end, I've been in multiple conversations with the governor. I have another one tomorrow. I've been in twice weekly conversations with just about every superintendent in the state in the Rhode Island Superintendents Association meeting, where we're bandying about ideas. And we get a lot of good ideas from what other people are doing. I also want you to know that, when you compare us to other communities, there are several, in the double digits in Rhode Island, where kids are going to be in school K through 12, 2 days a week, and that is the full in-person plan. So, we're trying to honor what, Governor Raimondo and the commissioner would like us to do, which is prioritize younger students for the full in-person. We want to get everybody in person, but in doing so, there are just certain logistical issues, not the least of which is busing. If we were, for instance, to have all of our high school students in school at the same time, it would take away our ability to add a busing layer for the elementary where busing is more needed. And it would, a lot of the other pieces of the plan would now become incredibly more difficult and if not impossible, and we may be talking about other layers that are not getting, full in-person time. So, the issue of equity has been thrown out. That word has been used quite a bit, and I appreciate that point, but I also want to appreciate that, for me, equity has a lot to do with what everyone is capable of at every level. And so, in my personal opinion, my professional opinion, I feel that a high school student is more capable of taking on some home instruction as part of this than, say, a kindergarten student or a second grader. And I think that is well thought out. But, so someone asks, is this done tonight? No, it is certainly not done. But I want you to know that I cannot, based on comments tonight from letters this week, I can't come back to you tonight and say, okay, here's how we fixed all these problems that you want to see fixed. This is going to take a little time. We have a little over a month before the school year begins. And, as of right now, there are school departments who've gotten some feedback from RIDE. North Kingstown is not one of them. I may be getting an email in the next half an hour or so. I'm not sure. I hear they're going up today. So I want to hear the feedback from the Department of Ed. And of course, I want the feedback from our community. The two major things that I've really been working most on this week are doing an assessment of our staff to find out if there are any staff members who are planning on not being able to return. That's something we obviously really need to know. The other thing is we've been getting a lot of requests for a long-term distance learning plan from the district. That is not something that we have a separate distance learning academy. Perhaps it could be something that is made. And there have been a lot of ideas thrown out there about, well, for the distance learning students, can we have, those students Zoom in or use Google Meets to come into their classroom if they and their parents so desire them to be at home all the time. And that may be an option, and we are talking about that with our unions. And I just want you to know, Sue Warburton, Tina Bilodeau have been tremendous. They're our union presidents. They've been nothing but supportive. They are part of a larger union, and I don't begrudge them one bit for being a little cautious in their approach to this, because they're concerned about their own health, they're concerned about the health of their families, and the district. And this comes from your input, parents. You have told us the number one concern you have is the safety of our kids and the adults in the building. So that's where we're starting. And some of these decisions that have been brought up tonight are based on those very points. So we're still working on it. I'm going to keep in touch with all of you. We're going to do more to collect information from the community about what in the plan that you like and not like. In some cases, I'm just going to be frank with you. I'm not necessarily going to do this in terms of the popularity of the idea. There may be some ideas that are just not popular. There are going to be a lot of parents in this district that do not want to be driving their kids in, but they're helping us out and they're going to do that. That's something they're taking on. So there are these different kinds of sacrifices that people are just going to have to make all around. And the idea that, well, this is a very popular idea, all right, that's part of the equation. but I also have to consider, is it safe? And is it even doable? So some of the ideas thrown out tonight make perfect sense if all we had was a high school and unlimited resources to work with. But that's just not the case. So the buses, for instance, is a big part of this, the transportation, and it's a very complicated one. And moving a piece more toward one level means you're taking away from another level. So I just want you all to know that I just sincerely appreciate these comments. We need to hear it. I'm taking it all in. I'm writing it all down, and it is part of my work with our leadership team and our administrators and teachers unions and all that, and with our parents. And so we're not done yet. We're gonna try to make some of these suggestions that we've had work, and where they can't, I'm gonna try to do my best to explain why they can't. So, as Forrest Gump says, that's all I have to say about that. So one thing that I would like to do, if I could just pivot right now, Mr. Blasball, is I would like to introduce Mr. Chris Cobain. Chris, you might want to wave so everyone sees you there.
Dr.
So, Mr. Cobain is on our agenda tonight. He is, I didn't foresee the need to replace our athletic director at this point, but unfortunately we had the death of Dick Fossa back in June. And as heartbreaking as that is, we've had Mr. Howie Hay sit in over the summer to help us, and I appreciate his work on this. He's our former athletic director. Mr. Cobain has gone through a pretty exhaustive process in our search for a new athletic director. Had a lot of people apply, really good people from around the state, and that speaks to Mr. Cobain's expertise. He has 11 years in the East Greenwich district and a number of years in teaching assignments and administrative assignments in other districts as well. He's a member of the leadership team and a president of the Rhode Island Interscholastic Administrators Association. He's got a tremendous reputation around the state for his work in this regard, and he knows the North Kingstown community very well, and he knows a number of our coaches, just because that's who he is as an athletic director and former coach and that sort of thing. So so we're really fortunate to have Mr. Cobain be my proposed choice for you tonight to approve for our next athletic director. And I would ask Mr. Blasball if you could move that agenda item, is number 4C, to the front of the agenda to take that vote now. I would hope that we could do that without any further ado.
You're muted.
It now gives you a nice message when you're muted, which I appreciate. We're gonna do that. Before we do, I do want to back up a tiny bit just to some comments on Dr. Ajay's proposal.
Okay.
Dr. Ajay's report. A couple quick points that I want to make, just from my point of view as a member of the school committee. I can't speak for anyone else here, but, I'm going to say my piece. One thing that's important to understand is that this last school year, beginning in March and over the summer, there's been a almost unprecedented amount of sort of state control over the way the local education is being implemented for obvious reasons. We're dealing with an unprecedented situation. And it, comes down from, the governor's office dictating our school calendar. On our agenda tonight is the approval of a school calendar when it's handed to us and we're approving it because we have to. Normally, each district in Rhode Island has the opportunity to do that. We were also presented by the Rhode Island Department of Health and Rhode Island Department of Education with a whole set of parameters that were to govern how we reopen our schools in the fall. And the administration has done an unbelievable amount of work in putting together this plan and essentially, fitting the classic round peg into a square hole. We're trying to make a set of rules fit into what we normally do, and they don't. And one of the issues is that, pretty much the number one edict that comes down from the state is that we need to limit contact and interactions between people in our schools. And everything that is happening with respect to these plans is based on the numbers that RIDE and the Department of Health have given us as to the size of classes, how many kids are supposed to be in one place, how those types of things are going to work. And I understand, for example, students desiring to have more social interaction with their friends and break up by grade, but that's actually completely the opposite of what we've been told we have to do. So while folks are upset that they're having limited contact with their friends is actually one of the goals of the plan. We're trying to avoid interactions between people to prevent the spread of a disease. And these plans...
Why are we having sports then, Greg? Why are we having sports?
I'm sorry, I don't know who's talking here, but first of all...
It's Kim Leanaway. I mean, Greg, why are we hiring an athletic director?
Okay, we don't get to interrupt here, so I'm just looking... I can't have people chiming in. All right, so where I was, and I'm going to say one thing to that, we don't know that we are having sports. That has not yet been determined by the governor. We do not know that. And I apologize that interruption threw me a little off track here. The other point I want to make is that overnight, our busing fleet has been effectively cut in half. And we're working on getting all of our students to school with that thrown at us. And it's an extraordinarily difficult task to figure out how to get all of these kids together with essentially half the busing. And virtually no amount of money is going to solve the fact that the buses and the drivers to increase the system simply don't exist. And another point that comes up, we talk a whole lot about the students, and as a parent myself, I completely understand that. But we also have staff, and it's extremely important that we make sure that the staff has the appropriate support that they need, and that they, as well as the students, are safe. And I have to applaud, as Dr. O'Shea said, the union leadership, because they have been extraordinary in working with our administration. In some districts, there have been a lot of friction between the unions and the administration, and I have to say that's simply not the case. We've had great working relationships with both of our unions, and we expect that to continue. And these plans are still plans. There's a lot that is potentially going to change. The input that people are making this evening at our prior meeting that we had specifically for this purpose are all being evaluated and looked at. It's just that in some circumstances, the suggestions that we have, though they're things we would love to do and love to be able to do, they just are not always possible based on the parameters that we were given as to how we have to reopen schools. Now, that having been said, if those parameters were to change, we would have tremendous more options. If we didn't have to limit the number of kids on our buses, if we didn't have to limit the size of our classes, if we didn't have to limit the interaction between students, we could go much more back to normal. We just don't know that we have the ability to do that because so far we have what was given to us. And I have to remind people again, as I mentioned in the last meeting, the governor has yet to decide whether we have in-person school at all. That has not yet been decided. And it's not the North Kingstown School Department, the superintendent, or anyone in the town of North Kingstown's decision as to whether or not that happens. That's going to be dictated by the governor of the state of Rhode Island, along with the Department of Health and the Department of Education. So we're going to have to see, which of these plans we implement when school starts and what school looks like. And we just don't know. So that being said, I know...
Hold on. Can I ask Dr. O'Shea a question? I believe, since I'm a student representative on the school committee, I have
Muted. Greg, you're muted. Mr. Chairman, there's no questions and answers at this point on it, so nobody can ask any questions.
Even for someone who's a student?
So, hold on. Let's all talk one at a time here. So, then I know that Ms. Hoskins had indicated that she wanted to have an opportunity to say something as well as a member of the school committee. I will give her the opportunity to do that.
I just wanted to thank all the families for their comments, concerns, and suggestions as it relates to the high school.
I want you to know that we are truly taking all the information, comments, requests as the plans for North Kingstown reopening evolves. We do understand that the plan for the spring was all over the place. There was little consistency for some families, had a lot of streamed instruction, while others, it was completely inadequate. I also want you to know that we are hearing you, and your suggestions and your comments are not being swept under the rug as someone insinuated. But they are being discussed. Again, I just want to thank all of you for the information that you have emailed the school committee, and that we are reading them and getting them, and we are discussing them. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, next,
Can the student represent?
Ms. Brenda, I'm addressing you here. I will, you are on this, a student representative to the school committee, and we've always given you the opportunity to speak. I will give you the opportunity to speak. I can't guarantee that Dr. Ajay will be able to answer your question right now. He may have to get back to you later, but if you'd like to speak briefly, I'll allow you to speak.
Okay, I was just hoping Dr. Ajay could answer some of the questions that I posed in citizens' comments. The first one being the discrepancy in the high school starting time and the 4 hours and 35 minutes that were scheduled to be in high school from 7:15 to 11:50, and the fact that in the FAQ doc...
No, the 72 minutes that I mentioned came from an earlier draft. In my discussions with Dr. Morse over the schedule, at one point we had discussed that the periods would be 72 minutes. They do not add up. You're right. So that will be fixed.
Okay, thank you. And then another question. Are you...
Mr. Blackboard, we can't have question and answers. It's not on the agenda at this point, and it is totally inappropriate. I think what can happen, as we've done in the past, if there's any questions, they can provide an email to the administration, and the administration will answer them as part of an email.
And I want to add, too, that a lot of these questions, are being added to our frequently asked questions list. And I plan on doing a lot of updating on that tomorrow based on tonight's session and a lot of the emails that I got. So, Joe, I will include the points that you're making.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to give Dr. Jay an opportunity to respond there. So thank you very much, Joe. Okay. Any other members of the school committee have any questions or comments to the superintendent's presentation? Okay, so now we're going to move on to our routine items, which include our consent agenda. And I'd ask unanimous consent to the school committee to move the athletic director up for consideration at this time. That's item C1. Does anyone have any objection?
No.
All right, so with unanimous consent, I'd ask for a motion to approve item C1 at this time.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
I didn't hear all the ayes. Sorry, it's tricky. I heard two. There's another? Aye. Okay, now I hear him. Okay, any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Mr. Blaswell, can I make one quick comment?
Certainly, and I want to congratulate our new athletic director.
Yes, congratulations, Mr. Cobain. We're really thrilled to have you in the district. You're going to be a great support to us. And I want people to know that there are efforts being made to have fall sports. Mr. Cobain knows a lot about those as a part of the athletic administrators group. Our superintendents were presented some ideas from the Rhode Island Interscholastic League today. Obviously, a lot depends on what the governor and the Department of Health are going to allow. My guess is it probably will not be as extensive a season or really to the extent that we're used to with sports with big crowds and big teams and all of that social interaction. But there are attempts to make this happen, but a final answer on this is not a district by district thing. And just so you know, Mr. Cobain is a certified administrator. We right now are holding on the hiring of a second dean at North Kingstown High School, and certainly see Mr. Cobain as helping us in all kinds of ways and with administrative support, not just in athletics. So we're really kind of playing this piece by ear too, and I just want everyone to know that part of the attraction of having someone like Mr. Cobain is administrative experience. That's going to help us in all kinds of ways.
All right, thank you very much. Next, I would ask for a motion to approve the non-exempted agenda. Oh, sorry, I didn't even get there yet. Are there any exemptions to the consent agenda?
B2.
Okay. Mr. Jones, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I was going to exempt B2.
Okay. Any others?
No, it's fine. B2.
Okay. Anybody else have any other abstentions? Then I'd ask for a motion to approve the non-exempted and not previously approved consent agenda items.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Hoskins.
Second.
Second, Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Jones, is that an aye? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes. Aye.
Yeah. Okay, good. Sorry. I think I got everybody. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item B2 was exempted.
Yeah, I make a motion to table item B2.
I have a motion to table item B2. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Hoskins. Any discussion on the motion to table? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Mather, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Yes,
frozen. Yep, you got frozen for a second. I need an answer on the motion to table.
All right. Aye. Oh.
Aye. Okay. So now we're unanimous. Motion to table passes. Next item is the approval of the statewide calendar. Dr. J, do you want to speak briefly as to this? I already mentioned that this is essentially mostly dictated by the state to us now.
Right. The school days are all dictated by the Rhode Island Department of Education. They include about 8 different days. I think they're all Mondays around the year in which there would be asynchronous learning for students while teachers have a professional day. It does reintroduce February vacation to North Kingstown, where we have not had that in recent years. Pretty much the rest of the way is similar to every other district in the state. The only difference is there are 2 days that are religious holidays that some districts celebrate, and they can continue to celebrate those days. But North Kingstown has traditionally not had those particular days on any of our calendars, so we took the choice not to include them. So the final day for us with a regular year is June 16th of 2021. And I just want to note that one of the points that the commissioner put out in this is that because we would all be have distance learning so readily available to us, that it would probably lessen the need for snow days if we have that. I'm not so sure I would guarantee that, only because snow days are often accompanied by power outages. So in those kinds of events, it may turn out that it might be a day that we have to make up. But if it's just a routine kind of thing where no one's losing power, we could probably make it work that, turn the snow day into a distance learning day.
Okay, thank you. So I need a motion to approve item D1.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Hoskins.
Second.
Second from Ms. Hildebrand. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Aye. Jenny, was that an aye?
Yes.
Okay. It's really hard to do it this way. Okay. Any objections? Any noes? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Next, we have the approval, item E, of the NKESP MOA, and that is in your packet in full. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Hoskins.
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Hildebrand. Any questions or discussion on this item? Mr. Jones.
Yeah, as always, I want to thank both the administration, our legal counsel, and the members of our negotiating committee, as well as the union representatives who worked together to get this MOA done in a pretty expeditious manner and in a pretty cordial manner as well. So I'm hoping that this also continues a trend where we're able to work cooperatively with our employees on important issues to get these kind of agreements. So thank you to everyone who worked on that.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is item F, the approval of the substitute staffing rates for 2021. If I could have a motion to approve item F.
So moved.
Motion, Ms. Hoskins.
Second.
And a second, Mr. Mather. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, we have the school committee approval of enhanced cleaning services, item G. If I could have a motion to approve item G. Motion, Mr. Mather.
Second.
Second from Ms. Hildebrand. Mrs. King, just because this is so relevant to our reopening, could you give a quick overview of what this entails and the work you've done on this?
Sure, absolutely. So I've been working with ABM, which I'll remind everybody is our outsourced vendor for custodial services. They've been in the district for, this is their 8th year. They presented to us a proposal for what they're calling enhanced cleaning services, and this will add 11 staff members to ABM, so they will be ABM employees as they currently are. That will equate to one custodian at each school, 2 at the high school, and one kind of a floater that's needed. The enhanced services that are described in the presentation that they gave us will be, focused on bathrooms, be focused on high touch points, sweeping through 3 times a day, and any other guidance that's provided by the state and CDC. So their hours are going to be a little bit jogged from our normal custodial support so that they can be there when students are there. So what they provided to us was basically the staffing costs, some cleaning costs, but also I added in there to get to the 50 grand, about another $4,000 a month. And I think this goes to someone else's point, spoke about something. That's going to be for classroom cleaning supplies, so hand sanitizers, cleaning spray, that kind of thing that we need in the classrooms, because we too are very concerned about ensuring that our staff and our students are protected, and we're going to all need to do that together. I could hire hundreds and hundreds of custodians, but we really need to work together on this in conjunction with that as a team to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other. So this plan, if we have to take this out to a full school year, will add $500,000 of cost to this district to reopen this school. That's our schools. So I think that the fact that you are even looking at this proposal tonight is a testament to how much we do care about our staff and students and their safety and cleanliness. Enhanced cleaning is one of those items.
Thank you. And I just want to make the point, and it's only been vaguely alluded to this evening, but it's important to understand the amount, and it comes up later in some of our budget adjustments, the amount of uncertainty in our current school budget is absolutely unprecedented. We are now into late July. We still don't know what our state aid is going to be. We don't know what all of our additional expenses are going to be. We don't know if we are walking into school yet or not. We don't know if we're implementing full distance learning. The unknowns are unreal here. And they're starting to become clearer, and we're reacting to them as we need to. But there's going to be a tremendous amount of give and take and moving things around and finding, we don't need to do this, we'll use that to pay for this, but yet we still need more for that. This is all going to continue as the year goes on, and this is just one of the first very large, unbudgeted, big ticket item that we have to deal with to reopen our schools in the fall. So I just want to make that point, and
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Back to Mary, so it's more just clarification. So 50,000 a month for the month of September, and then we would negotiate beyond that depending on what the schedule looks like.
Well, yes and no. So I will clarify a couple of things also. So ABM has told us that, you know, we can get out of this enhanced cleaning plan anytime that we need to. There, you know, might be some residual costs depending on when we do it, because they fully understand that if we go to a you know, partial schedule or even a partial remote or even a full remote, that we're not going to need this. So what I'm suggesting, and I'll talk more about this when we look at our budget adjustments, is that right now, you'll see in our budget adjustments that we have figured out how we can cover 1 month of this cleaning cost $50,000. I'm not really recommending going too far out at this point, because I do have some information about still some other unknowns, and I feel like if we try to kill ourselves right now to figure out how we're covering this for the entire school year is kind of a lesson in futility right now until we know what our entire budget looks like. So I am going to have to come back to you. I'll come back to you again in, you know, mid-August or late August when we continue on further. But I just think right now we need to focus on the first month. They'll be there for us if we need them for 9 more months, and if we don't, we can end it as well.
Okay. And you said this covers hand sanitizer for all the schools. They like guarantee that they'll have hand sanitizer available for our needs?
Yes. So what I'm also working on the side is they have procured for us hundreds of additional hand sanitizer units to be mounted. So
okay, that was my next question.
Right. One thing that I do want to say is I do remember that many people have asked where the hand sanitizer units are that I guess 10 years ago districts got for free. I recently found out that the big concern is by the fire department. And the fire department wants us to report to them and keep the stock of this hand sanitizer limited. That's what apparently there were many hand sanitizer stations removed, because I think logically we all know that these are 70 to 80% alcohol, so they're highly flammable. So we have to work to make sure that we don't have huge stockpiles in our schools on this, and pretty much a huge stockpile is any more than 5 gallons according to my working with our local fire marshal. So that's why some of those, I guess people remember a whole lot more of those hand sanitizer units than in the past. The other issue is that we have to be careful that if the hand sanitizer units are put anywhere where there's floor covering, aka carpeting, where there are no sprinklers, we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to figure out something else, because this stuff notoriously seeps into, you know, floor coverings and whatnot. So I understand that a lot of these things, you know, we might not even think about all of the other side ancillary things, but the fire department is a big part of this one, and I know a lot of people wouldn't think that, but you know, when you have a few bottles of hand sanitizer around, that's one thing, but when you have, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them in the district is a whole different discussion. It's also something else we have to be very careful of when we're talking about any type of desk shields that we've ordered for our clerks, any type of shields that we have at the reception desk. Fire is always an issue. We always have to involve our fire department, and thank goodness we have Greg Parasol and Scott Patel. They've been really partnering with us, but those are huge considerations.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Ms. Healy, I just want to make sure, I'm pretty confident we do, but can you just double check that for me, please? Or she's muted.
You do.
I thank you. I thought so. I just forgot to write it down. Without further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, we have item H, the approval of the All One Health Employee Assistance Program. If I could have a motion to approve.
So moved.
A motion from Ms. Hildebrand.
Second.
Second, Mr. Mather. Any questions or discussion?
Okay, sorry, I have lots of questions tonight. Wondering, I'm guessing this is Mrs. King again, if you could just describe a little bit about what this EAP covers this is for teachers and support staff?
Yeah, this is for all employees.
Okay.
This is an employee assistance plan, and these kind of plans I think we used to see a lot of in the 80s, maybe the early 90s, and they kind of fell out of favor for some reason. I really think it was lack of communication to employees, as well as lack of real meat in the plan. So about a year and a half ago, actually, the trust, which is our insurance broker, if you will, reached out to districts to see if we might be interested in implementing some of these plans again. Of course, we said, we would be interested in looking at what they had to offer. So I think the trust was in the right place at the right time to be able to offer this plan now, because this is actually also something that the Rhode Island Department of Education has recommended that we implement. So we were just kind of really lucky that the trust was able to do the legwork for us. And this provides our employees, any employee in the district, with a lot of services, mental health counseling, life coaching, legal and financial resources, things that they might not be able to get on their own, medical advocacy. Maybe they don't really know where to turn to, the best place to go. So they can use this employee assistance plan that the district funds for them to help them with their lives and all of the things that they experience in their lives. The other thing I can say is that we were told that, again, if we find that this is not being utilized, and it's all confidential. So when I say utilized, I don't know that, Mary King called and asked about A, B, or C. Not at all. It just means that X number of our employees have accessed it. If it's not being fully utilized, we can also end this with no, without any being into any full-time contract. Of course, I would bring that to the school committee before we did that. But we feel very strongly that this is something we need to offer our employees. It's our responsibility to communicate the availability of this to them and hope that they find this to be a useful tool.
Thank you. I think this is really important. I was excited to see it on here. I know Dr. O'Jay talked about it in his presentation, and we talked a lot tonight about our social, emotional, mental health wellness of our children, the students, but we also have to consider our staff too. So this is really great, and I hope folks take advantage of it.
And really, honestly, I know I'm not saying $8,000 is not a lot of money, but we have more than 600 employees. So when you think about it in terms of that and the resource that it could really be provided for them, I hope that they find it valuable. And I'll work with the union members to see what their feedback is if they get on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is item I, school committee approval of office space. If I get a motion to approve item I1.
So moved.
Motion by Simpkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Jones. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Mrs. King, anything on the 2019-20 school budget?
No.
Okay. Item B, which is the 2021 school budget adjustments. If I could have a motion to approve item B1.
So moved.
A motion from Ms. You can't second it. You got the motion.
I didn't go through that. I think it was Jenny, but it's fine. It's whatever.
Then let's back up. I'll give Jenny. Did you make the motion? Sorry.
That's okay.
So Ms. Hoskins made the motion. Ms. Hildebrand, you seconded, correct?
Yep.
Sorry, folks. Zoom is not being in front of everybody. So I have a motion and a second. Mrs. King, could you speak to these, please?
Yes, absolutely. So what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is I would like to address all of the discussion and information regarding CARES funding or COVID-19 funding or additional federal funding, whatever you want to call it. So the CARES funding that has so far been allocated to public schools was for the North Kingstown School Department was $452,000 of ESSER funds. However, those were not additive to our budget. So those in FY20, the state of Rhode Island told us that they were reducing our general state aid by $452,000, and instead we're putting that money in a Title I type grant bucket of money, which has necessitated us to fill out enhanced documentation to explain why we spent what we spent $452,000 on related to COVID-19. Okay, so that those funds no longer became our general education budget. And unfortunately, Dr. Mansiri has had to fill out all of that paperwork, and she's still working on it, because what this also means, now that that's gone into a Title I bucket, we have to also give public and private schools in our area the opportunity to take some of that money as well. So we will lose some of those funds that just basically were a shell game from state aid to this Title I type grant funding. And Dr. Mansiri is working on that. She's waiting to hear from a couple of the private schools. Apparently the town is having some cash flow issues, and we're working as quickly as we can to get that money for them, but it's not 100% in our control. The second part of the CARES funding is called CRF funding, and as of yesterday, we still do not know if those funds are going to be additive. And I can tell you that what RIDE has told us is that they are waiting on direction from the governor on what the state will or will not receive in federal direct aid, hoping to have an answer before the feds go on August break. So we don't know if those funds are going to be treated the same way as the FY21, meaning that our state aid was reduced and it's put into another bucket of money. I have been told that the justification, quote unquote, for using however much that money is going to be even more time-consuming and onerous than the ESSER funds. So I think everyone needs to be very clear. The North Kingstown School Department has not received one penny additional funding from any federal COVID-19 allotment, not one. And as a matter of fact, we will lose money in FY20 from this act. So people need to understand that. So when we go into our adjustments, Dr. O'Shea, Dr. Mansiri, Kim Carson, Mike Waterman, and I did everything we can to try to keep this level funded right now. The last thing that I want to do is start dipping in and out of fund balance at this point, because we do have a lot of open items like the chair had indicated, the big one being our state aid number again, outside of even the CRF, the CARES Act funds, just our general state aid that was supposedly going up $1.5 million, that we are hearing an awful lot of rumblings that we might lose that money. So that, on top of the cuts that we had from the town council from our original budget, is going to put us in some pretty dire straits. So what we have in front of you are the places where we believe we can cut to cover these additional items, or some of these additional items you approved earlier on the agenda. So the first reduction in expenses that it is somewhat precarious, but it's based on information that we have right now. We had originally budgeted quite an expansion for charter schools, especially one charter school in particular that was looking at a very large expansion that I think has been somewhat thwarted due to COVID-19. So we do have significant savings there, at least at this point, based on the enrollments that we have been communicated to us right now. So that's $200,000. As Dr. O'Shea noted, we're going to hold on posting the dean position at the high school for at least the first semester. That's a $50,000 savings. We are reducing some extracurricular activities at $75,000. So what I do want to tell you is that I did have conversations with high school and middle school principals, and their focus, they believe really they want to lean toward remedial and after-school support. So we believe that we have areas there that we can cut, and I will continue to work with them on that. And those are non-athletic at this point. As has been noted, we don't know what athletics is going to look like for the fall. We are going to hold on the posting for a currently open facilities employee. For the first semester, that will save $30,000. And we have a 0.3 reduction in music of $27,000. That was spread across 3 schools, and that person is currently on layoff and will remain on layoff. A couple of the things that you just approved. One thing was increased rental space at $4,000. The increased bus monitors to $14 an hour, $6,000. The addition of the employee assistant program for about $8,000. New stipended positions, 6 of them called grade level leaders that I know Dr. O'Jay can speak to, $12,000. We need a 0.5 increase in the special ed educator at pre-K. That's 1 year only, and that is to cover the other half of an aspiring principal position. That's estimated at $33,000. We need a 0.5 increase in a middle school teacher at Whitford Middle School in order to get them to a team model so that we can deal with our limited capacity. Whitford Middle School did an excellent job on that. I mean, just adding 1 teacher to get to a team approach was phenomenal. $41,000. We need a 0.6 increase in history at $49,000. That's sheer numbers. CTE is part of the contributing factor to that. And a 0.6 art teacher at Hamilton for $49,000. The specialists are really an area, I won't say that we're lacking, but they are an area that we spread pretty thin. So in order to mitigate teachers going from school to school, like we do with a lot of these, we need to add that 0.6 teacher. We also need to increase most of our 6-hour TAs to 6.5 hours. This was an item that we've talked about for quite some time because logically we all know that the school day is not 6 hours long. And these are hourly employees. So in order to get the proper coverage that you need for children coming into the building and leaving the building and everything in between, we really need these TAs to be on what the school schedule is. And then the last thing is the increase in the custodial contract for the month of September only at $50,000. So with a lot of effort and a lot of discussion and a lot of tears, we were able to at least contain some of these costs. But with as many unknowns as we have, we just have to wait and see where we're going to end up in August with the rest of our budget.
Okay, thank you very much. Any answers?
The CRF funding that you talked about, do you guys have an estimate on how much you think you might get for that?
No. No, it took us a long time to even get the first batch of it, so we have no idea.
Yeah.
I know that RIASBO, which is my counterpart group to superintendent's group, they're on a call every week with representatives from RIDE, but no offense to them, they're not getting any more information than what they're able to provide for us. So we don't know, but I have to be real honest with you. I'm not so sure that's going to give us extra money. I know that there was just some reports today that there's another $1.3 billion that the federal government is bandying around. But I really, truly believe, my gut tells me that the CRF fund is going to go the way of the ESSER fund. It's going to be a swap of state aid. And then we have to, go through excruciating lengths to prove that we spent it on COVID-19. So it becomes a very onerous task at that point because state aid is general education aid, and now there will be restrictions on these funds.
Right. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion. Yeah, Mr. Jones, sorry.
No, yeah, a couple points. So Lisa, also, unless they change the rules, they're allocating that money based on your Title I percentages, which I don't know if you're a parent and think all children should be counted equally when it comes to COVID-related protection. Maybe you should reach out to the state and the federal government, our federal delegation, because again, basing on Title I, North Kingstown won't get as much as some other districts if they just restrict it to Title I. And like Mrs. King said, it's also going to be forced to be used for COVID-related items. Greg, I wanted to add one point because it was brought up earlier by someone in a comment. So I worry a little that some of these cuts, either may come back and be expensive down the road. We'll have to see. With charter schools, they are under no obligation if they have one method of teaching, such as in person, and a parent wants to withhold their child for online to accommodate them, which means they'll come back to our district. If a parent there, unlike the traditional district, it's going to have to find a way to accommodate parents in all kinds of students in all kinds of situations. So I worry about that. But one thing that was mentioned was a rainy day fund. I will just point out that when you look at the district's funds, in addition to the 2% that we keep as a reserve, not a rainy day fund, just like the town council keeps 10% of their money, and actually the entire town budget, including the school, on reserve. The about $1 million that some people like to say is a rainy day fund, this committee has currently put aside to reduce the future need for taxpayers from North Kingstown in the next two budgets. Currently, we are projected to be funding formula losers, and I know everyone's trying to just get through this fall and this budget, but one of the responsibilities of this committee is to think about not only this year, but the next couple of years. And we may see a significant cut in our state aid, not only this year from COVID and the state's budget woes, but just due to the normal funding formula adjustments. And so to the extent that there might be some funds left over, that might, if we expend those now, that might require a significant ask of taxpayers and of the town council next year and the year after, which I think some people might take exception to. So I just be careful saying that there's a rainy day fund out there. Every dollar is committed to something right now, and it's just an issue perhaps of priorities of where it gets spent.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Then we had a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Mrs. King, you have a summer project update on the bond?
Right, so we have the high school stadium project. They're just doing some punch list items. That was a great project. We're really excited about that, getting that completely wrapped up. We have the air conditioning project at the high school that's going very, very well. We expect that to be substantial completion on or before August 21st. And then the Davisville Middle School window replacement project is also going very timely. I'm happy to say that the last batch of windows that was needed was delivered today. So that project is moving along as well. They might be a little bit ahead of schedule, but that is also slated for substantial completion on or before August 21st. I'm going to be working with both of those contractors to see what we can do to start getting some of our teachers back into their classrooms there as soon as we can, as we have more information. But those have been two really, really good projects, really good contractors. Alberg at the high school and Martone at BMS, and then Gregorio was the contractor on the stadium project.
Thank you very much. Next, we just have our reports in our packet are the disposal notifications as well as the cash reconciliations. So anyone have any questions on those reports? Okay, if not, we've reached the end of our regular agenda. The school committee held a executive session prior to this meeting that we were not able to conclude. We had simply recessed. So at this point, I would ask for a motion to recess into executive session and resume discussion of legal advice and litigation pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42462A2 and employee job performance pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A1. The individual has been notified, including of his right to have any discussion held in open session. If I could have a motion to that effect. I have a motion. Mr. Knapp? And a second from Ms. Hildebrand. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. And for members of the public watching who aren't familiar what that all means is under the Rhode Island Open Meetings Act, there are certain very limited circumstances that the school committee can speak in private. These are those. And so at this point, the public portion of the meeting has ended. So we're going to end that, and thank you very much for attending. So if everyone could just hold on while we tidy up the meeting participant.